Welcome to the Losail International Circuit in Qatar for the first race meeting in the 2006 GP Masters calendar. This afternoon, its qualifying will be live to the 45-minute session shortly. Now, what a concept this is. GP Masters has got together the F1 heroes of years past and reignited that competitive flame that lies in all of them in a brand new motorsport series. Over the next 5 race meetings, we're going to see the likes of Mansell, Fittipaldi and Patrese go head-to-head around the globe. We start in the heart of the Arabian Gulf, Qatar. With me in the studio to cast an expert eye over today's qualifying action is editor of Motorsport magazine, Marcus Simmons. Marcus, first of all, how much of a coup is it to get these drivers racing together again?
Well, it's great because they span a quarter of a century of racing in Formula One, from when Emerson Fittipaldi came in 1970 to the mid-1990s when the likes of Martini and Mansell raced in their last Grand Prix. So some of them have never raced each other before in Formula One, so it's great to see them up against each other. And others are just continuing old rivalries, so very, very good. Well, I doubt that any of them have lost their competitive edge. What do you think? Probably not, no. Nigel Mansell is one of the most competitive people ever. And here he is on his way to, I think, fastest time in the practice session. Well, no, this, in fact, now we've just moved on to qualifying. He's just going on his first qualifying lap at the moment. We're watching live pictures at the moment from Qatar. He won Kalami, didn't he, back in November. He smashed the Qatar lap record earlier on this morning, and he's been pretty prolific over the course of the last couple of days. Is he the man to beat? He is. He's got the win under his belt, but it's very, very close behind him. Eric van der Poel and Derek Warwick both within 0.2 of a second of him. And knowing Derek Warwick, he'll be extremely anxious to overturn that very small advantage. I tell you what he did say, Marcus. He did say that this is Nigel Mansell, that Losail is the hardest circuit he's ever driven. That includes Monaco as well. So not too much room for overtaking. How important is qualifying and qualifying well here? It's very important because looking at the circuit, it's never been used for car racing before. But looking at it, there's one fairly long straight going down to the first corner, and the rest of it is medium and high-speed corners. So really only one overtaking chance, and a very, very difficult circuit to drive. And what about the track temperatures as well? We were speaking, weren't we, before we actually came on air and before we could see these pictures here, but 93 degrees track temperatures. How are drivers of 45 years plus going to cope with those conditions? Well, I think they're sadists at Grand Prix Masters because they started at Kyalami in South Africa, just coming into the summer there, and now they're moving into the desert. It's probably not going to be too much of a problem in qualifying today because they only have to run 12 laps, but in the race tomorrow, constant exertion over that period of time with some very effective modern racing cars, it is really going to be difficult for these guys. OK, Marcus, more of your thoughts later. It is, of course, right in the middle of the desert, this Qatar track. Qualifying has got underway, as you've seen. We've seen Nigel Mansell in action. Let's see some of the other drivers in action as well and go trackside and join our commentary team of Alan Jones and Murray Walker.
That's Derek Warwick losing the back of the car. He was doing that a lot in, that's what we call oversteer, where the back of the car steps out and tries to slide off the track. But if you've got super reflexes like these drivers have got, and no wonder Derek is, because he's been fastest in the first sector, he's been fastest in the second sector, he's quicker than Nigel Mansell. This is going to be the fastest lap so far, and indeed it is. 1 minute 48.8, and that's about 2.5 seconds slower than they went this morning. That doesn't matter. It's how fast they go this afternoon that matters.
Oh, a little bit of oversteer there. You can see a little bit of correction on the steering wheel. He's really getting into it. Great to see.
Yeah, the engine is behind the driver. You may be asking what those flickering lights on the steering wheel are for. Well, they increase in number as the revs of the engine go up. And when they reach a point where the lights change from green to red, that is the ideal point for the driver to change gear. Derek Warwick is quicker again on his second time of the first sector of this lap. but we mustn't get too excited about this. There's a long way still to go. For instance, Tambay, Pierluigi Martini, that's Derek Warwick's daughter, Eric van der Poele have not yet gone out onto the circuit, and van der Poele is certainly one of the men to be watching, and Stefan Johansson, the Swedish driver, is going quick now. Fast first sector, fastest of all so far in the second sector. We're going to see a lot of changes as we look now. There is Martini in the silver car. He's leading René Arnoux, the veteran French driver, ex-Renault and Ferrari driver, in the yellow car with the white helmet, and behind them in the blue car is Stefan Johansson, and Nigel Mansell is only sixth fastest at the moment. He's gone into the garage for a checkover. Derek Warwick is quickest, 1 minute 48.839. They will line up tomorrow to start the race in rows of 2 across the circuit. There are 15 cars altogether, so there's going to be 2 lines of 7 from front to rear. And Stefan Johansson, who put up a very fast second sector, has lost out on the third sector, 5 seconds down. He's had some sort of a problem there, maybe a bit of traffic.
I think a bit of traffic, or maybe he's had a little bit of an off. Very pretty car, that, Murray. That's a beautiful colour blue.
And Stefan, who is certainly one of the favoured men, had appalling luck in South Africa at Kyalami. He was on the very, very first lap. He had a brake problem which put him into the gravel trap and out of the race. And that is a long, long way to go not to take part. Now you can see how flat the circuit is. It's an enormous credit to the people who designed and built this circuit, and it was all built with local labour. There were no specialists imported from overseas to design and lay out and build this circuit. And there are enormous runoff areas, by which I mean those gravel areas you can see at the bottom of your picture, which give the driver an opportunity to regain the circuit should he leave it at high speed.
There's a twofold reason for that. It's obviously that's a huge runoff and extremely safe, but all those crushed rocks also help to stop the sand from coming onto the circuit in the case of wind.
So, Stefan Johansson, we're looking at pursuing René Arnoux, the veteran French driver, who was 4.6 seconds off the pace this morning. Arnoux, he's 57 years old, getting on a bit by any standards. He's the second oldest in the event, second only to Emerson Fittipaldi, and we are now 8 minutes into the 45-minute session.
Whoops.
As René Arnoux runs very, very wide indeed. I don't know if he's put off by having somebody dive inside it. Well, this is what it looked like from Arnoux's point of view.
No, I think that was just going in a little bit hot and, quite frankly, just semi-losing it.
9 minutes have gone. Derek Warwick is fastest. Eddie Cheever is in second position. The man you are looking at, Riccardo Patrese, is down in 10th position, and he's got a lot of room for manoeuvre to improve. Eddie Cheever, the American ex-Indy 500 winner, who's still actively competing, incidentally. The fact that you're in the Grand Prix Masters doesn't mean to say that you've got to have given up competing in motorsport altogether. It just means to say that you have got to have given up driving in Formula One. All these drivers have done that. So Arnoux has now got Johansson well and truly on his tail, and Derek Warwick is he's out on the circuit, putting in the laps. A point here, Alan, these drivers have just got 4 sets of tyres to last for the whole of the race meeting, the practice sessions, the qualifying session, and in the race tomorrow they've got to use a set of tyres. They've got to start on a set of tyres, and of course there's not going to be any pit stops, which have been used before, so tyres are going to be critical as ever.
They certainly are. Now there's a good toe. Johansson got a good toe there down the straight, which should help his overall
Takes him
time.
up into second position. Stefan Johansson moves up into second place behind Derek Warwick. The Englishman is still fastest and going faster at the present moment. putting in a scintillating second sector and a superb 53.530 seconds. Now, the succession of fastest laps that we have had so far, 10 minutes and 45 seconds into this 45-minute session, is Nigel Mansell was fastest. Then his time was brought down by 2 seconds by the man you're looking at, Derek Warwick, who went quicker again, 1 minute 48.457. And wouldn't Derek Warwick just love to put one across Nigel Mansell?
Oh, not many. He's getting back to those tyres, Murray. Quite rightly, 4 sets of tyres for the weekend. Now, the clever guys used to, one, to get to know the circuit, familiarise themselves, set the car up, and they kept 2 sets for this afternoon's qualifying. Now, what they'll do is they'll put a banker in, but then they'll be very, very careful with the second set of tyres. They'll try and do as quick a lap as they possibly can and as few laps as they possibly can, keeping in mind that they must use that set for the race.
Great. Now, have a close look at the steering wheel when Derek Warwick straightens it out. Never mind. There is Derek Warwick moving across and letting through Eric van der Poel, who runs a bit wide across the ripple strip on the curbing. As coming towards us now is Riccardo Patrese with that very distinctively liveried car. Those of you who are historical experts at motor racing will know that those are the world-famous Martini colours used in rallies for the top cars for the Lancia team, used in sports cars. Riccardo Patrese drove for the Martini Lancia team many years ago, and now he's using those colours on his Delta Motorsport car here. And Derek Warwick and Stefan Johansson in the blue car, the Swedish driver that you have seen a lot in this session, is now second fastest ahead of Eddie Cheever, behind Derek Warwick. Hans Stuck, the Austrian, is in 4th place ahead of Dutchman Jan Lammers, and Pierluigi Martini, who was the sensation of practicing yesterday, the little Italian, is now on a very quick one indeed. And we're looking at him now. That is Martini. He won at Le Mans for BMW in the 24-hour race in 1999 and spent most of his career driving for the Minardi Formula One team, where, to be honest, he had no chance of winning. But he's out to show here that if he'd had the right car, he could have won.
Well, he was sensational yesterday, Murray. He was a little bit quiet this morning, but now, look at him. He's quickest in first and second sector. So this could be a really good lap.
Right, stand by for some dramatic change at the top now, because here is Pierluigi Martini going down the line, and over he goes to take fastest so far. And that is 13 minutes into the session with 33 minutes still to go. Pierluigi Martini has gone round in 1 minute 48.285, which is actually still 2.5 seconds slower than this morning, but as we've said earlier on, that will be due to heat and perhaps a change in circuit conditions. But he's displaced Derek Warwick. So Italian Martini leads Englishman Warwick, leads Swedish driver Stefan Johansson, leads American Eddie Cheever, leads Austrian Hans Stuck, and in 6th position at the present moment is Dutchman Jan Lammers. What a spread of nationalities.
And Murray, if I'm not very much mistaken, to take one of your quotes, I will bet anything that Nigel Mansell's in the garage now, keeping an eye on these times, and he will come out as he is now and watch. This is where you'll see the fireworks.
Yeah, Nigel has got so much experience of Formula One. He competed in Formula One for 16 years, from 1980 to 1995, won 31 Grand Prix. He's one of the highest Grand Prix winner scorers of all time, and an enormous number of points. So he's got a gigantic bank of experience on which to draw. That's his pit attendant getting ready, the sign that he will hold out to interview to Nigel, who looks to me as though he's on a 5-lap session at the present moment. And how is Nigel Mansell doing? Well, the answer is he's down in 12th position, but don't let that fool you. He's not going to be down there for very long. And there is a spread between Nigel Mansell and Pierluigi Martini, who is fastest at the present moment, of just under 2 seconds. So that's how close it is. Eric van der Poel, the dark horse. He and Pierluigi Martini have only just scrambled into Grand Prix Masters because they're so young. As Alan said, this is about the only category of motorsport where you want to be older to compete. And Van der Poel is 45 years old. He's still very active behind the wheel. He desperately wants, and the red flag has gone out. That means to say the session is being stopped. I don't know what the reason is. I'm sure we'll find out very shortly. But rotten luck for Eddie Cheever, who had just started on a quick lap and was fastest in the first sector.
Absolutely, Mario. I was keeping an eye on that. That would have been very interesting indeed. And it's always the way when you're in it. And Mansell was very quick. He was the quickest in the second session, second sector. So sod's law.
Well, 16 minutes out of 45 have gone. Let's just reprise on how it all started and how it all developed. Nigel Mansell was out straight away, first from the pit lane, and fairly obviously put up the first fastest lap. The reason that the session is being stopped by the red flag incident is that there is debris on the circuit. Now, whether that debris is something off a car or whether, more likely, I think, the rear wheels have kicked up something from the gravel trap. And the last thing you want is a large chunk of Qatar scenery thrown at your face at 200 miles an hour.
Well, here we go now. We're going to find out the reason, I suspect. But this is one of the reasons that it's fairly important that you get out and do a banker early on in the session, just in case for this very scenario.
Yeah, just in case people are not clear what we're talking about when Alan and I refer to bankers. That means to say a quick lap, which will be quick enough to get you well up towards the front of the grid, although you would hope to improve, because a lot of drivers would naturally have stayed out until the very last moment when the track had been what we call rubbered up. That is to say, more rubber from the tyres laid down on the actual track surface, which improves the grip, and they can therefore go faster. But if they got a banker, a time they will be sure will get them high up on the grid, they can then relax a bit, wait for the circuit conditions to improve, and go out and try to go even faster. Well, this...
So red flag stopping the session for the moment, but Pierluigi Martini, the man setting the pace. Qualifying will continue after the break. Welcome back to GP Masters and to Qatar and the Losail International Circuit. The qualifying session there has been red flagged temporarily. That's due to debris on the track. Nigel Mansell is not a happy man. He's been speaking to Amanda Stretton about it.
You'd just gone out with new tyres and you looked to be trying to do a fast lap before the session was red flagged.
Yeah, I was on a really good lap. I was up on Sector 1 and Sector 2 and the red flag comes out and obviously it means slow down. I slowed down. The car in front still went past the start and finish line, but I don't think that lap counts. But I was on a really, really good lap and I was virtually home, and very disappointing when that happens because you only get one shot at bringing the tyres in. So I'll give it another go on these tyres, but they won't be as good, I know that.
You have another spare set though. Do you think the session will slow down though as we go on?
Yeah, but you know, you don't want to throw away a new set of tyres, and you know, these tyres were probably good for the race, but they'll be at least half a second off now where they should be, or maybe even a second, but we'll try. I just hope we get a free lap.
Thanks a lot, Nigel.
Disappointed Nigel Mansell there, though. He'll try and go one better as the qualifying session resumes in Qatar. Let's head back there and join our commentary team once more of Alan Jones and Murray Walker.
Golden ice, because unsurprisingly, Pierluigi Martini, who is Italian, has a thriving ice cream business.
Gelati, no doubt.
Gelati. He makes base stock ice cream, and it's a very, very big business. And Pierluigi Martini is a little chap physically, but he's got the heart of a lion and a wonderful, wonderful twinkling expression, great sense of humour. So he's in the pit now in his garage now. We call the garages the pits. He's in his garage now, sitting in the comparative shade, just waiting to see how things develop. He knows he's fastest. He knows that he's got a substantial gap between himself and a lot of the other competitors, although Andrea de Cesaris, that we saw out of the car, has gone up to second fastest, and he's only 1/10 of a second slower than Martini. So there's two Italians at the top now.
Sometimes it's better to sit in the garage at a restart of a session like this, because if you all go out together, you're immediately in traffic and that can hinder your lap. So maybe it's better to let them go out for half a lap or 3/4 and then go out, and you've got a clear lap to yourself or clear track to yourself.
25 minutes gone, 20 minutes to go. Pierluigi fastest, 1/10 of a second faster than Andrea de Cesaris. In fact, rather less than that. Derek Warwick is just over 1/10 of a second slower, and there is just over 1/10 of a second covering the top three at the present moment, with Stefan Johansson 4th fastest, Eddie Cheever 5th fastest. Riccardo Patrese has come up well with a wet sail. That's difficult to do here at Doha. 6th fastest ahead of Hans Stuck, and Eric van der Poele is 8th, Lammers is 9th, and Christian Danner, the German driver, is in 10th position, and Eddie Cheever, the man that we're looking at the present moment, is on it. Fastest first sector. Eddie Cheever, number 17, 47 years old, still very much an active driver in America. He runs 3 race teams there. He's going to be driving in the Indy 500 this year, and he's a past winner of that. He's been training for weeks and weeks by riding almost thousands of miles on a bicycle and doing weight training. They're getting very serious about it, Alan.
Too serious for me.
Alan, you've driven these cars, and tell us what it's like.
They're great cars, Murray. They're great to drive. I was fortunate enough to do laps in the car at Kyalami in South Africa for the first round of the Masters, and they do everything right. I've got to congratulate Delta. They have built the perfect car for the purpose.
Well, we're going to see some action now, I think, because Mansell is quick. He's out on the circuit. Eddie Cheever is undoubtedly going to move up the pecking order as he completes this lap, but he's rapidly going to be dispossessed by Nigel Mansell, I suspect. I don't know, sure enough. Cheever goes fastest, 1:47.894. What about Nigel Mansell? There he goes! Nigel Mansell quickest, 6/10 of a second, and now Derek Warwick goes second fastest. It is all happening here at Doha. Mansell, Warwick, Fittipaldi, Cheever, and there's a tiny gap between them, only 6/10 of a second between the fastest 4.
This is the part that I love, Murray, when it really gets down to the end of qualifying, and you know they've all been waiting, they've all been foxing, they've all been looking at the times, and they've been waiting for the right moment. This to me is exciting motorsport.
And at the moment, Danner is the man. Christian Danner from Germany, from Munich in Germany, and he has gone second fastest to Nigel Mansell, 0.026 200ths of a second slower than Nigel Mansell, and Christian Danner has certainly got something to prove. He was Formula 3000 champion in 1985. He's driven in comparatively few Grand Prix, but he drove in cars like the Zaxpeed and the Osella and the Real and the Arrows, cars that were, this is him, cars that were never going to do anything. And I know that Christian feels that he can beat these people if he's in the right car, in the right conditions, and he's certainly showing his skill now.
Well, all due respect to the cars that you've just mentioned, these things would feel like Rolls Royces, I would think.
Well, Martini said yesterday, he said this car here, give it some, Danner, and he's done it. Back steps out. Pierluigi Martini said to me yesterday, these cars are better and quicker and much nicer to drive than the Formula 1 cars that I drove in, and he drove as recently as 1995. So Christian Danner on a really quick lap. He's not going to pass. He's 300ths of a second slower than Nigel Mansell at the second split, and that is a colossal achievement.
I dare say he lost a little bit of time too, Murray, with that slide. So it'll be interesting to see what the third sector is.
A few tenths I think he will have lost. And there he goes, second fastest, and the gap between him and Nigel Mansell, well, this is amazing. 0.026 seconds is the gap between Mansell and Dana. And if Dana hadn't had that bit of oversteer, he probably would have beaten Nigel Mansell.
Yeah, I mean, he lost a lot of time there. I mean, it's the old saying, tyres are designed to go forward, not sideways. And if they're going sideways, they're creating drag, and you literally can just see the time being wiped off.
We're just about 2/3 of the way through the session now. 30 minutes almost completed. 15 minutes to go to complete the qualifying session for the Grand Prix Masters race at Doha, this wonderful circuit at Losail tomorrow. And it is hot, hot, hot out there. Remember, these drivers are wearing fireproof overalls, 3-layer overalls. They're wearing long johns down to their ankles. They're wearing long sleeved vests. And that's either Arnoux or Van der Poele. I don't know which because I can't see the helmet. But it's René Arnoux. René Arnoux has spun out of the race. Now, the question is he in a position of danger to himself and the other competitors?
Whoa, it was not a bad old lose. It's a good slide. One good thing about these cars, well, we've mentioned a lot of good things about these cars. They do have a self-starter. And I think that's a wonderful idea, because as long as everybody's got them, no one's at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But where you can actually benefit from that, in an incident like this, under normal circumstances, if you stall the car, your history. You've got to either wait to be towed off, or you've got to be waited to be pushed off. The good thing about having a starter on the car, you can press the button and drive away.
Yeah, and if you can't, it's such a waste. It's a waste of all the effort the teams have put in. It's a waste of all the effort the drivers have put in. It's a waste of the spectators' time and money. And Nigel Mansell is waiting in the pits, 14 minutes to go. He knows he's still fastest, but he knows it's a mighty close thing. And I remind you that what these drivers are trying to do, all of them, is to get onto the front row of the grid, preferably in pole position. The grid is a staggered formation. The fastest car is a car's length ahead of the car in the second row alongside him, which is just that much further back. So they get an advantage into the first corner. And if you can lead in the first corner here, you're going to be in a strong position because it's so difficult to pass.
Absolutely. And keep in mind that Mansell has done that quickest time on those tyres which he said weren't going to be all that good, because he ruined them because of that red flag incident. We do know now that he's sitting in the garage on a brand new set of tyres, which is a wonderful psychological thing for him, because if anyone does go quicker than him, he's going to drive out of that garage knowing that he's got a brand new set of tyres to attack back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be goodbye, mum, to the rest of them if that is the case when Nigel comes out on new tyres. As we watch Hans Stuck putting in a really quick sector there. Very distinctive car, the black Phantom-backed car. Very distinctive helmet, that blue helmet with the stars around the visor, which Hans Stuck has always had as his trademark. I remember seeing him at the Monaco Grand Prix one year between the casino square on the plunge down to the Metropole, passing two cars, and you've got to be pretty special to do that.
Well, the thing I remember about Hans is there's this wonderful photograph of him in a BMW CSL at the Nürburgring, and there's a picture of him going over a thing that they call the Flugplatz, and the car's about, I don't know, it looks like about 2 metres off the ground, but I think it's at least a metre. And I think that photograph was just about in every magazine in the world.
I know the one you mean. He is, of course, the son of the great pre-war driver for Auto Union, Hans Stuck, who came over to Britain once to compete in the Shelsley-Walsh Hill Climb, and who was the top man in 1935 when Auto Union and Mercedes-Benz came back with such enormous success into Grand Prix racing. Just 12, in fact 11 and a half minutes left now, with Nigel Mansell still considerably less than a tenth of a second faster than Christian Dana, who is considerably less than a tenth of a second faster than Derek Warwick. In fact, we have less than a second covering the fastest 9 men. As Hans Stuck puts the right rear wheel off the circuit. Now, is Derek going out again? Well, the mechanics are making some adjustments to the car. There's that famous blue helmet of his. You can see that Derek is fighting fit. I wouldn't like to be in an argument with him. Very strong, very determined. There's only 4 people on the track at the present moment. Most of them have gone back to their garages to make adjustments because, as both Alan and I have said several times already, it's going to be busy, busy, busy on that track in the last 5 minutes. In fact, you've got to pick the right moment to go out, or you're going to shoot yourself in the foot by going out late to get a good time on a rubbered up track, only to find that everybody else is trying to do the same thing.
Correct, Murray, and it's going to be very interesting to see who is holding back with new tyres with that 5 minutes to go. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot.
Yes. Well, they're not daft. They're all very, very experienced drivers. Even the ones that have competed in the least number of Formula One Grand Prix and who are competing in this Grand Prix Masters event have got to be superstars, because nobody gets to drive a Formula One car in anger who is not very, very special indeed. Down that long 1,000 metre straight. Now this is where the speed builds up. They exit turn 12 at about 109 kilometres an hour and accelerate up to 200, nearly 300 kilometres an hour before turning in for the right-hander at turn 1, which is what Hans Stuck has just done. This is a replay of him running wide.
I think that was a reasonably untidy lap, Murray, with all due respect. It was his quickest lap, but I think it was pretty untidy.
Yeah, and of course in the race tomorrow, as we all know, consistency is going to be the name of the game. Putting up one quick lap to qualify well is not going to be good enough tomorrow if you can't put a whole succession of those laps together time after time.
Look at that, Murray. 1.1 second separates 10 cars.
It is incredible. And when you think that all these cars obviously have been separately built, they're being driven by different people on different sets of tyres in different circumstances, in different heat conditions at the beginning and the end of this circuit, and yet 1 second covers the top 9. Quite amazing. Nigel goes quicker in that first sector, 0.3 of a second, and that is a lot. The hallmark of a really super driver is his ability to... Senna used to do
this. He was a master at it.
Time after time, someone would put up a quicker lap than him and he'd go out faster again. Someone else would go faster than him, he'd be faster again.
He just had that knack of sitting in the garage and waiting with about literally 2 minutes to go, and whack, he'd go out and whack it on pole.
So Nigel Mansell has improved his time to 1 minute 46.9. But that's still only 0.3 of a second faster than Christian Danner, who is still in second place, as we look at Hans Stuck motoring down towards us. So we're really getting to the, I don't know whether to say the bottom of the barrel or the top of the barrel in terms of times, because the increments are getting smaller and smaller as they go faster. The fastest lap that we started off with, Nigel Mansell, this session, was 1 minute 50.9, and he's now gone 4 seconds faster. But then so many other people. Danner, Warwick, Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi has moved up to 4th, and actually Emerson's lost a lot of time effectively, because yesterday and the day before he had an engine which wasn't up to snuff, and they've changed it overnight. So he's having the first real experience in anger of this more powerful engine.
And how do we know it was off? Because of the transparency of the telemetry, which they can all double check with. They went back, double checked against everybody else. He was coming onto the straight with the same amount of revs. His exit speed was the same, but he was down considerably on top speed at the end of the straight. So this transparency allowed them to say, all right, he's definitely down on power, let's put another engine in.
And that's what's making for such close and exciting competition. Here in qualifying at Losail Circuit of Doha, and even more so in the race tomorrow, because if they're this close in qualifying, they're still going to be very close in the race tomorrow, as we watch Eliseo Salazar from another country we haven't mentioned. He comes from Chile. He's very much top man in Chile at sports cars, touring cars, single-seater racing, although sadly Eliseo Salazar is known in Formula One for the fact that he had a coming together with Nelson Piquet at Hockenheim years ago, got in the way of Piquet, and Piquet went off the circuit, and Nelson indulged in a bit of pretty ineffective kickboxing.
Well, I was going to say, it wasn't even a bit of biff, it was just kicking. It was looked like a ballet gone wrong. But they're the best of mates, and they were good mates before that, and I'm told now that they're the best of mates again, and whenever they greet each other, they put on a little pretend fight for a couple of seconds.
Well, there's still 12 and a half minutes to go, because remember that the clock was stopped when that red flag came out for 7 minutes. So the session is running a bit longer than we might have expected as we ride with Andrea de Cesaris. Now, this is the Italian who was second fastest at one point, who was fourth in the Grand Prix Masters at Kyalami, who spends most of his time when he's not driving racing cars, and there's not much of that these days, surfing. He's a great surfer, and he's a very good bloke at it too. Andrea de Cesaris, 14 years in Formula One. He drove in an amazing 208 Grand Prix for no less than 10 different teams. But sadly, none of them really were top teams at the time. And he like Eliseo Salazar, is remembered for something spectacular, and that was a gigantic crash he had in the Ligier in Austria in 1985, when the car tumbled end over end over end and looked as though it was never going to stop. And at the end of it, Andrea undoes the safety belt, steps out of the car and walks home. Thank you very much, that was exciting.
I think most drivers commonly get asked which was your favourite race. I think de Cesaris gets commonly asked which was your favourite crash.
He was called Andrea the Crasher.
Exactly.
I hope he doesn't see this telecast.
He's pretty fit, I'll have to hide.
Well, now you see the problem of getting past somebody. There's a slow man in front of him, and it's Patrick Tambay. Tambay didn't seem to see Andrea in his mirrors, moved over very late. And I haven't done this, Alan. It must be very difficult as a driver to just pick the right second to move over and try and get past.
Well, it's pretty much the responsibility of the driver to have a look in the mirror before you go into the corner. And then if you think there's a car coming up on you, get out of the way. I mean, one of the things that really used to annoy me was people that didn't have any consideration for other guys that were on a good lap.
Well, Mansell is still quickest. There's still 0.3 of a second between him and Christian Danner. This is Dutchman Jan Lammers that we haven't seen much of. There's just 10 minutes left to go now. And Jan Lammers has another 13 years of Grand Prix experience. He's a Le Mans winner for Jaguar as long ago as 1988. And he won the Daytona 24-hour race twice. So he's no mean driver, particularly he's been World Sports Car Champion a couple of times. And he's still doing a bit of active driving at the age of 49. And he's got an enormous benefit. He only weighs 75 kilograms, and Patrick Tambay at the other end of the spectrum weighs 109. So there's 34 kilograms weight difference between them. And in order to compensate for that, these cars are ballasted, or are going to be ballasted, so that they are all around about 705 kilograms. Everything is done in Grand Prix Masters to level out the cars and make the best driver with.
Oh, I think that's an excellent idea. Interesting to know that Lammers has done the least amount of laps of anybody, so whether he's been sitting back just keeping those tyres for the closing stages will remain to be seen.
Well, the closing stages are fairly rapidly approaching. We've got about 8.5 minutes left of the session, provided there are no more stoppages, which I sincerely hope there are not going to be. This is Eliseo Salazar from Chile, down in 12th position out of the 15 competitors in tomorrow's Grand Prix Masters race. And this is undoubtedly going to develop into a great series. We've got a race coming up at Silverstone later on in the year. There are going to be other events as well. And there are so many drivers here from different countries that in virtually whatever country a Grand Prix Masters event is going to be held, there is going to be a large nucleus of tremendously passionate national fans rooting for that driver. And Brazil, for instance, this telecast is being seen in Brazil, where Emerson Fittipaldi is practically a god.
Talking of which, here he is now,
Emerson
Murray.
in 4th position at the moment. Is he improving his time? No, he's not. And he's 9/10 of a second slower than Nigel Mansell. Talking about tyres, there's going to be no question, unlike Formula One, of drivers coming in to refuel and take on fresh tyres tomorrow. It is a much shorter race than Formula One, and they are not going to have time to refuel and put on fresh tyres. So they can have a real go now and save a set of fresh tyres, new tyres, until the end of the session, and then go for it on the best possible rubber. Nigel Mansell has gone fastest in the 3rd sector, but his time remains 1 minute 46.926, and it's still Christian Danner, who is from Germany, so it's an English driver fastest, then a German driver, then Derek Warwick from England. Fittipaldi has moved up for Brazil to 4th place ahead of American Eddie Cheever. 6th position is Italian Riccardo Patrese. Then from Sweden, 7th Stefan Johansson. Italy's Pierluigi Martini is 8th. Another Italian, Andrea de Cesaris, is 9th. Austrian Hans Stuck completes the top 10. 6 minutes and 15 seconds to go now.
Murray, you talk about pit stops and changing tyres, and this will be an argument that could rage on forever, but I personally am in favour of no pit stop and no changing of tyres, because not only does it get down to raw speed from the driver, but it also brings in the element of the driver being able to look after his equipment and tyres to get the result.
Something which Alain Prost, that we're hoping to see as
Christian Danner.
Christian Danner does a little rally crossing, gets onto the grass. Yeah, and he's back on track. Now they are starting to speed up. Riccardo Patrese is improving his time on this lap. He's 4th quickest at the moment. Eddie Cheever has just done his fastest lap. Pierluigi Martini, who has slipped down, and there's a spin from Riccardo Patrese, trying just a bit too hard. There she goes. Now, something that always used to amaze and delight me, Alan, was the way you Grand Prix drivers could do a 360-degree spin and then seemingly automatically, to know which way you were facing, engage gear and drive off again.
Practice makes perfect.
Derek Warwick back on the track. He's going for it. 3rd fastest at the present moment. Under 5 minutes left now. We should get a lot of action from this point onwards. I remind you that with 5 minutes to go, the qualifying session for tomorrow's Grand Prix Masters race on the Losail Circuit at Doha is the pole position is provisionally occupied by Nigel Mansell, followed by Christian Danner from Germany, just 0.3 of a second slower. Then Derek Warwick is 0.4 slower than Mansell. Riccardo Patrese is half a second slower than Mansell. Half a second covers the first 4. So it could be anybody's pole position. And as a result of that, almost anybody's race. Although Nigel Mansell, obviously, as the previous winner of a Grand Prix Masters event, the only one that was held, has to be favourite tomorrow. He's the one that everybody is gunning for, particularly Derek Warwick. You know, this is quite superb. This man is 51 years old, and look at the way he's going for it.
He's certainly having a go, that's for sure, Murray.
But what looked spectacular doesn't necessarily turn out to be fast, because as you rightly said, Alan, these cars are designed to go forwards, not sideways. We're going to know soon. Is Derek Warwick going to move up to 2nd position? I don't think he can possibly move up to 1st. No, he is not. He lost time on those 2 slides that he had. He's 0.4 of a second slower than Nigel Mansell. That's Rhonda, his wife, that we were just looking at. Nigel's finished for the day. The ice pack, that's his daughter Chloe in the background with the drinks bottle ready for him. And his son Greg in the background, who is competing in Formula BMW this year with his brother Leo. They're a very, very close-knit family, the Mansells.
I told him as much in South Africa. I honestly have the utmost of admiration. The family are very close. He hops out of the car. One of the sons grabs the helmet and cleans the visor. The daughter hands him the ice pack. I mean, they're a very, very close-knit family, and it's a real credit to both of them.
It certainly is, as Patrick Tambay dives inside in Andrea de Cesaris' car and gives him the finger. Yes, you got in my way, Andrea. I was on a fast lap. Well, there's just about a couple of minutes now, just under 2 minutes before the end of the session, and the decision about who is going to be starting from that vital pole position for the Grand Prix Masters race tomorrow. It's not going to be Patrick Tambay, I can tell you that. He is slowest at the present moment, 15th position behind René Arnoux. Jan Lammers is 13th, Salazar is 12th. Van der Poel is a very, very disappointing 11th place. The man who was quickest in one of the sessions yesterday, his first appearance in the Grand Prix Masters. I don't know if he's had a problem. I'm sure the old Grand Prix driver's excuse book will come out.
Of which there's plenty.
Yeah.
It's funny, I saw Nigel in the pits yesterday and he had the ice pack on the back of his neck, and he came up and he said, "Whew, it's hot out there, Alan." And I said, "Do you think you've got problems? I'm on the commentary box with that air conditioning deciding which coffee to have." I won't tell you what he said to me.
I can imagine. Patrick Tambay crosses the line, fails to improve on his time. And we are now well into the last minute, because there's now 45 seconds to go of the session, and it looks as though Nigel Mansell is impregnable for pole position again, as he was in South Africa. And alongside him, that is the man who looks as though he's going to be second. There's Nigel. And Christian Danner, that we just saw crossing the line, has taken a superb second place. That's provisional, because there are still people out on the track. Indeed, Pierluigi Martini is going quick enough, potentially, to move up through the field a bit from the 6th place that he is in now. Here he is, that distinctive yellow helmet. I think that's the prettiest car on the circuit. It's the same as all the others visually, except that it has that very, very distinctive and dignified silver livery. Is it good enough to help Pierluigi Martini move up by improving on his time? And his time at the present moment, he's got to beat his... And he's done so. He's moved up 1 place. Pierluigi Martini displaces Emerson Fittipaldi. The checkered flag is out. The session is over. The people who are out on the circuit can complete their laps, of course, and their time will count if they do. Patrick Tambay driving in now. He's got about 15 seconds to go before he completes the lap. But subject to something dramatic happening in the last few seconds, Christian Danner is out on the circuit, but he's not going fast enough, nearly fast enough to displace Nigel Mansell. And he should be well pleased with second place on the grid.
Extremely pleased. I am confused with Van der Poel, as you quite rightly said, Murray. I mean, he's been blisteringly fast the last couple of days and this morning, and I would have expected he would have finished a lot higher up the grid than what he has. So perhaps, as you said, he's had some problems with the car. We don't know.
Well, Nigel Mansell taking congratulations in the garages, and there is the confirmation of the grid order for tomorrow, with Mansell and Danner on the front row, Warwick and Patrese on row 2, Martini and Fittipaldi on row 3, followed row 4 by Eddie Cheever and Stefan Johansson, and row 5 is Andrea de Cesaris and Hans Stuck.
So the GP Masters sweating it out in the heat of the Qatar sunshine. Let's bring Marcus Simmons back into the fold in the calm and cool of the studio at Sky Television. And Marcus, Mansell on pole. Murray said it, but how much of a mark is is it of a great driver to go out there and better your pole time?
Well, I mean, what was as impressive as that was the fact that he was on a hot lap when it was red flagged earlier on in the session, and his tyres were past their best when he went back out again, but he got pole and then he lowered the time yet further. So yeah, fantastic performance.
There really isn't a lot in it between the top 4 or 5. Mansell, Danner, Warwick, Patrese and Martini. Are you surprised by quite how competitive it is?
Yeah, it's well, one of the things is that they're all in equal equipment now, and especially people like Christian Danner and Eric van der Poel would be smiling if they were within 5 or 6 seconds of pole position when they were in Formula 1, but their equipment was so competitive. So yeah, it really evens up the field, and driving the same car has made it very, very close.
I'm going to ask you about who you might think the dark horse might be tomorrow. Throw a spanner in the works. Who could it be? Perhaps Warwick?
I think Derek Warwick. He was 6th on the grid at Kyle Army in November. He's now 3rd on the grid, right behind Nigel Mansell, who he would absolutely love to beat. Christian Danner's on the front row, but we saw him being fairly scruffy at times during qualifying, and I wonder whether he's going to be able to stay consistent in the race.
Could be very tasty indeed. Marcus, thanks very much for your thoughts. Well, you can join us, of course, for race day. Don't forget, 12:30 on Sky Sports Extra for all the action from Qatar. And with Murray Walker back in the commentary box and Nigel Mansell on pole, how could you not? Goodbye for now.